Next segment brought to you by Davidson's Liquors. You can build your own six-pack. Just go into Davidson's Liquors and go into one of the couple of coolers where they've got all these craft beers, over 50 craft beers, and you can build your own six-pack. Doesn't have to all be the same beer. It can be 6 different beers, like this one. So, Davidson's Liquors.
I think they get the point.
All right, and because of that, we do what we call a pick 6 every day.
Yeah.
We list 6 things.
Who came up with this great one?
You did.
Oh, of course. So are you going first or am I going first today?
I'm first. Okay. So we were going to do this right after the Grammys, but we put it off for a day.
That was the, if anybody didn't get it, that was the tie-in to when I brought it up was, let's do the 6 greatest rock and roll bands because the Grammys were coming up, and you guys go, well, I will blow
You
that
are
off.
such
We could do
high
that
maintenance. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
The 6 greatest rock and roll bands ever, according to he and I.
The key to this is rock and roll. And you start out with...
What do you mean?
That's not rock and roll.
What are you talking about? It's a band. It's a musical band.
No, the key to that whole thing was rock and roll.
Yeah,
the Spinners were not a rock and roll.
I rock out
Motown.
to the Spinners, okay?
Oh,
the Spinners.
We see where this is going.
There was a boy and girl.
Yeah.
Boy said, I love you so.
Yeah.
We used to do dance routines.
You don't even know what the subject is here.
The Spinners, fun.
Oh, God.
Lots of fun. All right, number 5.
Queen.
Freddie Mercury. Queen. I mean, they were so creative and so eclectic. And I mean, you sing along with everything, right? That Queen does. You just sing along with all of it. They were great. I can't wait for the play. They're doing a play. They're doing a play with all of Queen's music. Number 4. Led Zeppelin. All right, you happy? Now, I got to tell you, this is full disclosure. I was not a huge Zeppelin fan growing up. But what I appreciate about them is their musicianship. Bonham and Paige, and I mean, they're just so, the vocals, they were just so good. And again, they wrote so many different types of music, and they were so different. Pioneers, love them.
Do you know why? See, I'm the master of all worthless knowledge.
Okay.
Why is it spelled like that?
LED? Tell me.
Because their manager said that they said this group is going to go over, Jimmy Page said, this group is going to go over like a lead balloon. And so one of the other band members said, let's call it Led Zeppelin. So that would have been L-E-A-D.
Right.
And the manager said, no, people will call you Lead Zeppelin. So that's why.
Good point.
That's why.
That's a great point.
See?
Number 3.
You learn something every day.
Number 3.
Temptations are not a rock and roll band. That's not a rock and roll band.
On Cloud 9. The best.
But it's not a rock and roll band.
I grew up with Motown.
When you come up with this, you come up with best soul music
rock and roll.
or something.
They are rock and roll.
What, is Al Green next?
Number 2. The Eagles.
Yeah.
Doesn't excite you?
They were kind of...
Come on, mainstream. Talking about musicianship, precision.
They're across the board,
right.
though.
They were the first. They were the first great crossover band.
You didn't get.
They started playing rockabilly.
You didn't get the memo.
And
Rockabilly?
Yeah, rockabilly.
Yeah. Okay, let's do the 6 best rockabilly
and hillbilly
bands.
Rock and roll and hillbilly.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You didn't get the memo.
And number 1,
rock and roll.
Number 1. This is like our question yesterday.
Oh, I mean, see, they weren't even the greatest rock and roll.
Are you
band
out of your mind? This is like John Wooden of the greatest basketball coaches. There's no option here. What they did for music, for popular culture, for everything, fashion.
Wake up.
The Beatles. Come on. Anybody, if you pick anybody other than the Beatles as number 1, you don't know your music. Sorry.
Okay, everybody hang in there. Okay, now it's my turn? Or is
2-minute warning, by the way. That's the alarm.
Yeah. Woody's pick 6. Number 6. Buddy Holly and the Credit.
Are you kidding me? Seriously?
That was the first rock and roll band.
Oh, that'll be the day when you say goodbye,
You don't
and
understand
that'll be the day.
Yes, they did more with a drum and a bass and 2 guitars than anybody in history.
Really? More than the Beatles?
Do you ever hear the British group The Hollies?
Yes.
That
I like
was
the
in
Hollies
tribute,
a lot.
That was in tribute to Buddy Holly.
The Hollies were better than Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
They were the first rock and roll group. Everybody else in England, the Beatles,
Then I die.
Everybody in England, including your Beatles, copied their music from Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Okay, well, good for them.
Gosh, I mean, you're talking about original. You must buy Prince and put on your wall. I like originals. Yeah, and I'm not talking about Prince.
The artist?
This is a rock and roll band. This is a rock and roll band.
Okay, I like them.
Well, why didn't you put them on your list?
I don't like because I don't like them that much.
The Temptations you had on your list.
Can I give you a very quick funny story about them?
Sure, absolutely. Take all the
I'm
time
at
you
spring
want.
training.
You got 1 minute.
I'm at spring training with the Cubs, and I'm sitting in the dugout with Steve Stone and Ron Santo, and we're just shooting the bull. It's a couple hours before the game, and their traveling secretary, Jimmy Banks, comes up to us and says, "Guys, I'd like to introduce you to somebody. This is John. He's a big Cubs fan." Hi, John. Hi, John. Hi, Ron. Hi, Les. Hi, Steve. How you doing? Great, great, great. Talk a little bit. How the Cubs going to do? Walks away. All right. And I'm saying to myself, that guy looks really familiar. And I leave Stone and Santo, and I walk to the end of the dugout where Jimmy Banks is still standing. I say, "Jimmy, who was that guy? What's his last name?" He said, "Oh, that was John Fogerty from CCR."
Do you? What are they rebuilding the building
I
here?
don't know.
That's
We're
what
here
they're-
drilling.
Where would you think they were from? They did Down on the Bayou. They had a lot of Cajun kind of.
I know where they were
music.
from.
Where are they
Northern
from?
California.
Yeah. But everybody thinks they're Louisiana band, and
Yeah.
they weren't. Let's go to number 4 before the building falls in. Ah! Rock and roll! Hello, be still my heart. This is a rock and roll band. Oh, the Spinners. These are 3 guys. This is the greatest little band from Houston, Texas. You left them off your list.
Yeah,
ZZ
not a big
Top
fan- not
is-
a big fan.
Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about rock and roll. You're talking about rockabilly. Okay.
I
Number
can't even
3.
understand the words of their songs.
It doesn't matter. It's the music. Yardbirds. What do you mean? 3 of the greatest guitar players in history. You brought up Jimmy Page.
Clapton.
Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, and Jeff Beck.
Yeah, well,
3 of the greatest
Why didn't you go
guitar
Cream? Why didn't
players
you
of
go
all
Cre-
time,
why
the
didn't you-
Yardbirds.
Why didn't you go Cream?
Heart full of soul.
Why don't you go Cream?
Because Yardbirds was a predecessor to Cream.
Okay.
Cream,
All right.
Cream would have
They
been,
were very good.
Cream would have been number 2. And you can't put Bruce Springsteen. That's rock and roll. Did you see the part in parentheses?
Yes, I did.
Wendy Aiello is a famous.
Wendy Aiello is a friend of ours. She works PR in town, and her
Yeah,
brother
she
is
owns a
Nils
PR
Lofgren,
agency,
who
and
plays in the E
yeah,
Street Band.
Yeah, it's right, and so I had that. But Bruce
Yeah,
Springsteen.
you know what? He probably should have been. It was between the Spinners and Bruce Springsteen, and I went with the Spinners. Hey, y'all, prepare yourself for the rubber band.
And you got Beatles.
Man.
Rock and roll. Remember, rock and roll. Here's number 1. Who is number 1?
The Beatles.
The Rolling Stones.
No, the anti-Beatles.
Do you know that in truth, the Rolling Stones were all the good guys and the Beatles were the bad guys?
Well, wait a second.
The Rolling Stones.
They were no angels, okay?
The Rolling Stones were guys that went to art school, and they were nice guys. They dressed them up. They said, "We want to dress you up to be the anti-Beatles." The Beatles were the guys that would kind of got into trouble, so they put them in a suit, and suddenly everybody likes them. That is the greatest rock and roll band of all time.
You know what?
That is the greatest. You tell me, Jumpin' Jack Flash. I can go through 50 songs that are rock and roll. That is what rock and roll is all about. You had Led Zeppelin. Rolling Stones were in front of Led Zeppelin.
Satisfaction is number 1 in a lot of polls of the greatest rock and roll song ever.
Oh,
But so is Hotel
where
California.
Would the Spinners
So is
be?
Hotel
Where would
California.
the Spinners be on that
It
list?
depends on what song you're.
Okay.
Could it be I'm falling in love with your baby?
Okay, next week we're going to do best non-rock and roll groups, and maybe you'll get that right. Oh, I know. No, when you do non-rock and roll, you'll put the Rolling Stones on that list. Number 1, I got.
They were such nice guys.
I got
people
Little
getting killed at
Anthony-
their concerts
Little
by
Anthony and the
by
Imperials.
By
You got
what's
that?
the motorcycle group? Hell's Angels. Such nice guys.
Oh yeah,
People dying at their concert because
well,
Hell's
why
Angels are
why
killing
didn't
them.
Why didn't you do Lionel Richie? as a rock and roll
He was
band?
number 7.
How about Diana Ross and the Supremes?
And they were number 8.
Why didn't you do the Temptations? If you do the
I did.
Temptations, you got to do Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. You can't put the Temptations in over. I mean,
Woody,
we got to do that one
how
day.
can you not have the Beatles on the list? Not even in your top
They
6
weren't a
of the
rock
greatest
and roll band.
What do you mean
They
they
were
were?
the
Why would
greatest-
you call their music? What would you call their music?
It was a combination of blues and soul and.
So is the Rolling Stones.
I mean, think about the.
They came from
No,
the same
blues,
roots.
They played rock and roll. The Beatles didn't play it. I mean, I love the Beatles.
Oh my
but they
God! The
weren't
Beatles
they
practically
weren't the great-
invented rock and roll.
Buddy Holly and the Crickets invented rock and roll. If you want to know
Oh,
about it,
that'll be the day. Then I die.
and guess what? That is the day. Let's wrap this up before I kick your ass out of here. God, rock and roll band.